Now that the travel restrictions have been lifted in Chicago and elsewhere, I figured it would be a great time to revisit my top tips for ensuring that your kiddo gets enough sleep while you're on vacation. Because if your child isn't getting enough sleep, they're gonna become overtired and cranky, and that equals a vacation buzzkill. Now, I don't want that to happen to you, so I'm gonna share my 4 proven ways to make sure that your child gets the rest that they need to make your next trip an enjoyable one. So tip number 1 is to have fun, but just not too much fun. Now, I don't want you stressing out about getting back to your hotel, resort, Airbnb, family's house, wherever you're staying on time for every nap and bedtime. It is okay. I'm giving you permission for your child to go down for a nap or 2 or for bedtime a little later. Yes, they're going to be maybe a little crankier the next day, but that's why I like it to institute an every other day pattern when it comes to our activities. I typically schedule a busy day and then follow it up with a chill day. That way I can make sure that if my children are off schedule and a little overtired, they can catch up on their sleep the very next day. Because the last thing you want to do is have your child start to build up a sleep deficit, because it can take a few days for them to work off that sleep debt, and by the time they do, the vacation's over. Tip number 2 is don't travel light. Bring all the things to replicate your child's home sleep environment, because they're gonna feel a little off kilter because they're in new surroundings, and the more familiar you can make it, the better. So make sure that you bring the sound machine. If they're sleeping in a travel crib, bring your crib sheets, and don't forget the lovey. In fact, you may want to buy an extra lovey in case you lose it in transit. Tip number 3 is to make sure your child is sleeping in a very, very dark environment. That's because you don't want your child to be distracted by their surroundings when they're trying to fall asleep at bedtime, nor do you want them to wake up in the middle of the night and realize that they're somewhere new and have a hard time falling back to sleep. Now, if you have a baby, I would highly recommend investing in a slumber pod. It is a lifesaver. If you're not familiar with what it is, it's a canopy that you can put over a pack and play or a travel crib to achieve a pitch black environment. And it collapses nice and small and compact, and you can stick it in your carry-on. I love it for families that stay at hotels frequently, because it will allow them to black out their kiddo's sleep environment while they have the lights on in the hotel room. That way they can hang out, read a book, instead of laying in bed in complete utter darkness at 7 p.m. at night. Now, if you have an older child, unfortunately the slumber pod is not going to be an option. What I would recommend doing instead is bringing some good old-fashioned aluminum foil and painter's tape. I do it all the time. It's super easy to stick in your suitcase, and it does the trick. You can just completely cover those windows so that no light is seeping in. Now, I forgot to mention, if you're going to check out the slumber pod, I do have a discount code. It's KellyMurray10, and you get $20 off. Last but not least, have realistic expectations, but don't jump to conclusions. So whenever you travel to a new location, your child's gonna feel a little insecure because everything is different, and they may need some assistance when it comes to falling asleep and staying asleep. But I don't want you to assume that is gonna be the case. If your child is an independent sleeper, try to see what happens if you put them in their crib or bed and allow them to fall asleep independently. But if they do struggle, don't worry about giving them a little bit of assistance. They're gonna feel a little uncomfortable in their new surroundings. So I would make sure, if you have a baby, to do lots of checks with a little bit of consoling, or maybe even sit in the room with your baby as they're falling asleep so you can give them some comfort and support. But just don't overdo it. Only a couple nights should do the trick, and then they should be acclimated to the new location and be able to use those independent sleep skills that you work so hard to achieve. Now, if you have an older child, again, don't assume that they're going to need you to lay with them or hold their hand as they fall asleep. Try to see what happens if you put them down, kiss them, and walk out. But if they do struggle, then it is okay to lay with them for maybe a night. And then the next night, sit in a chair and hold their hand. And then the following night, go a little further and sit in a chair as they fall asleep. You know, it's a new environment. Things can feel a little scary. There's new shadows, new noises, and they may need your presence in order to feel comfortable falling asleep. But again, just don't overdo it. Usually after a few nights, the newness wears off and everything becomes familiar, and they should be able to feel comfortable falling asleep on their own. I hope that these tips help you feel better prepared to ensure that your child still sleeps well during your next vacation. I know I've said it before, but well-rested kids are typically adaptable kids. If you're currently struggling with your kiddos' sleep habits, please get in touch with us. I would love to hear more about your situation. That way we can explain how we can help. That way we can get you on the right path, get your child sleeping well, and the next trip won't be so anxiety-ridden because you know your child already knows how to sleep well. If you're interested in learning more about our services, please schedule a free 15-minute discovery call on our website, Kelly Murray Sleep. Thanks so much for watching, and sleep well.